Over the weekend, we saw Eric Bienemy become the new offensive coordinator and assistant head coach of the Washington Commanders. So this is a quote-unquote promotion in title now that he's going to be the assistant coach and not just the OC here. But we talked a lot about it on the last podcast of why can't Bienemy get a job, what's going on in these interviews, because he's interviewed for 12 teams over the last 5 seasons, has not been given that head coaching job. Now he goes the OC route. And to me, I think this is a wildly unfair situation because you go from coaching the best quarterback in the league to where now you need to prove yourself with Sam Howell or insert quarterback to be named later now to potentially get a head coaching job. But Bienemy is now the play caller in the OC and the assistant in our nation's capital.
Well, I mean, look, Steve Spagnuolo did it. He was at the Eagles too as a defense coordinator. He went up to the Giants. He was the linebacker coach at the Eagles, and he went up. I think he was with Steve. It was with Jim Johnson was still alive, and he took that job with Coughlin. And everybody said, "Boy, that's a dumb move. You're not going to be able to win there, and you're going to get fired in a year." And next thing you know, he's the head coach of the St. Louis Rams. So, what looks like a bad situation to some people looks like opportunity. I mean, as the great Albert Einstein once said, "In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity." Look. Is it perfect? They got some really good skill players in Washington. Yeah. I mean, they do. McLaurin, Dotson, Logan Tom. The offensive line isn't very good, and he's going to have to get the quarterback to play well. But, I mean, if he stays there, he's not getting one. Look, here's the reality. Everybody who takes shots at the league for not hiring Bienemy, and that's fair, I think Steve Wilks has a better case. Really, because Steve Wilks proved he could win 6 games. I don't think that was fair to him. Mm-hmm. But the owner wanted to go with an offensive coach, so he has every right to do whatever he wants. But I think, why don't we – Ryan Poles didn't interview Bienemy. Chris Ballard interviewed him. They didn't hire him. They hired an offensive coach. So, maybe we should talk – maybe Bienemy should talk to those. And, what is he doing wrong in the interview? Like we wrote about today on the Daily Coach. It really isn't – it's a more reflection – of the person who rejected you than the rejectee. So you've got to be able, because if Joshua Bell is only getting $32 worth of tips, meanwhile he's having concerts worth, cost $150 a ticket, and he's giving away free shit in the metro station in Washington. So, people are just, you're playing to the wrong audience, right? Mm-hmm. That's essentially what was happening down there. And so is Bienemy playing to the wrong audience? I think that's the fair question he's got to ask to fix it. Because I agree with you. It's not fair to him if he goes in there and they're 24th in the league in offensive football, again, because they don't have a quarterback.
Yeah.
Is that on him? I mean, Brian Daboll, this is fact. Brian Daboll went from the Browns, he went to Miami, didn't move the ball, then he went to Kansas City, struggled to be the offensive coordinator there, got fired. We tried to bring him into Cleveland, interview him for an offensive coordinator job. That didn't happen. He went to New England. Then he went to Alabama, and then he got the Buffalo thing. And when he gets to Buffalo, he's got Josh Allen. Okay, great. Now all of a sudden, he's been the same good coach all along, but now that he got Josh Allen, he became a great coach, right? That's kind of what happens. So, I think it's going to be hard, and you're going to have to see through the situation to hire him.
Because my only concern here for Bienemy, and I don't know, he might, like I said in the last podcast, he might be the greatest head coach ever. He might be the worst head coach ever. But my concern is that if Washington's offense is not productive this season, people are going to point to say, see, that's why he shouldn't be a head coach, that he was just riding the coattails of Mahomes and Reed.
I think you're going to get that anywhere. I think the bigger concern if I was Bienemy is look, I'm inheriting a staff that I didn't hire. I got Juan Castillo as my tight end coach. He probably thinks he should be the coordinator. I got John Matsko, the line coach. I got other coaches on the staff that never have worked with him. So that's going to take some leadership skills. That's going to take him really comprehensively building a team, and trying to find a way to get everybody integrated into what he wants to do and how he just works it. Because not every team game plans the same way. And so I think it's going to really require his ability to get leadership and move from there.
Is the seat a little warm for Ron Rivera? Because he's been in Washington for a little bit while. Maybe Bienemy becomes the interim head coach midway through the season.
I think there certainly could be the case. I really do. I think there's a really good chance of that. Because look, Ron hasn't had a winning season in 5 years, although you'd never know it. Ron was out at the Super Bowl. I told you that. When did we talk about that? He was at the Super Bowl. He's going from interview row. If I didn't make the playoffs in 5 years that I was the head coach, I would never left the office. I've actually texted Coach in the league and said, "Are you here at the Senior Bowl?" He said, "Fuck no, I'm in offensive meetings." Okay.
he was playing golf instead of going to the Senior Bowl. I think he was doing the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. So
hey, that's 2 weeks off. I mean, I'm not saying don't take time off, but I mean, at some point, like, what are you doing?
it's a fair question to ask, especially with a coach that, I mean, a season ago they finished 8-1. Prior to that, 7-10. 2020 they go 7-9. Now they win the division that year and make the playoffs in 2020 because the NFC East was just an utter disaster. Prescott got hurt. Eagles had their issues with Carson Wentz. So he's yet to be above 500 with the Commanders.
He's only had 3 500 seasons. And here's the thing. The Commanders don't have a lot of money to spend. I mean, they're going to have to fix that offensive line badly. Line's not very good. They're going to have to fix the line, and they're going to have to figure out who's the quarterback.
I'm looking at his records just year over year, and my God,
seasons, Femi.
This is incredible stuff, man.
Nobody looks at the facts. It's like in most cases, everybody just has an opinion without looking at facts. I was like listening to Rick Rubin's book, The Musical Guy, and he talks about the evolution of history, how it's really just based on opinion. It's not because you don't live in the moment, you don't realize it. People don't realize it. If you've studied his career, he's had 3 winning seasons.
That's incredible.
And yet he's treated by the media like he's won 7 Super Bowls. I mean, Belichick was rumored to be on the hot seat this year. 6 fucking titles. How many wins? The greatest coach of all time. People are writing stories like he should get fired. Meanwhile, Ron Rivera's sitting there in Washington just like say, "Hey, Biz, I'm here. I'm loving life."
His last winning season was in 2017.
It's typically what Rubin talks about. It's a little bit about it's journalism. It's targeted journalism. So if you don't like something, they're going to target that. And so all of a sudden the heat is on.
The heat's not on for Ron Rivera. Maybe it will be this
because why? People like Ron. Everybody likes Ron. Ron had cancer. I hope he's cured cancer. He's probably the nicest human being on planet Earth. I'm sure he is. But he's never held to the standard that some of these other coaches are.
I think that's the biggest lesson and something that I was taught before I began my career. It's either you better be the best at your job or you better be likable and be able to get along with others. Because if you're not in one of those 2 categories, your ass is going to be on the outside looking in because nobody wants you if they don't like you.
The other thing I said about Ron, I mean, if Daniel Snyder didn't have his $50 million home up for sale and he wasn't going to make $1 billion, $8 billion, $7 billion, he would have fired Ron after 2 years. But, it's a different world now. I mean, just think about that. This offseason, people were saying Belichick should get fired. No national media pundits was saying Rivera's done a bad job. The Carson Wentz trade, all that stuff that happened. So the whole problem with the team was they fired Scott Turner.
Meanwhile, Jack Del Rio's still there, that defense. I mean,
this is 2 years in a row. The only change they've made on the coaching staff in 2 years after not making the playoffs is one coach. They brought in Juan Castillo, the tight end coach, but then they brought in Bienemy. Now Bienemy's got to take this over. That's a hard thing to do. And you say that, the culture's great. Okay, is it really?
Yeah, no. I hope nobody's saying that the culture's great in Washington based on what we've seen with that team. Thanks for watching the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi. And for more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to VSiN Live and the GM Shuffle podcast with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN, wherever you get your podcasts.